What's up, guys? Welcome back to Ask Ben, where fans ask me training-related questions, and I do my best to answer them as concisely and to the best of my ability and knowledge as I can. All right? So, episode 5, can you be too strong for CrossFit? So today's question comes from Brent Babcock, and he says, I see most CrossFit athletes are constantly trying to get stronger. Obviously, strength is something that many people need to work on, but is there a point where strength isn't helpful and can potentially hurt an athlete's performance? All right. So I like this question a lot. I think it's super relevant to a very small percentage of the population, right? In the sense that, like most people, they're going to constantly have to be working on their strength if they're looking to actually compete at a certain level, right? So, number one, it is never wrong to be strong, right? You're never going to be too strong in the sense that you lift too much weight or something like that, right? I think what he's getting at, obviously what's true here, is the sense that, like, in order to continually improve in your strength work, you get diminishing returns, right? Like, if you snatch 260 and you've been snatching for 7 years and training for that long, it's going to take you a lot more energy to get to 280, like a lot more, like way more than the 10 pounds before that did, right? Like, so there's this idea that as you get closer to your threshold, it gets harder and harder to get the gain, so to speak, right? So in that sense, like, you're probably better served redirecting some of your training stressors and energy and focus away from that to something that you're not as good at, right? Once you have those numbers, right? So once we have someone who has the strength, maybe they're better off spending more time on gymnastics because that's a relative weakness relative to the field, right? Or maybe they spend more time on rowing or wall balls or double unders or handstands because those are relative weaknesses and it's no longer snatch and clean jerk or squatting, right? So again, the real question here is, like, should I invest more in my strength training? Right? And to answer that, for one, I would say, like, are you a competitor? And, like, are you doing this for health versus, or are you actually looking to compete in the sport of fitness? So I'm going to answer this for people who are looking to compete, right? In that sense. What is the price of admission? So whatever competition or level you're looking to compete at, what are the numbers that you need to have to be competitive with that field, right? So if we take this to the very top threshold, right, and we say, oh, I want to go to the CrossFit Games, you need to realize that to get to the games, as a male, you're going to have to snatch 250 and you're probably going to have to clean jerk 335. If you can't do that, it's going to be extremely hard for you to go to the games, right? If you have those numbers, it's a lot more likely that you'll actually be able to go to the games and qualify based on those strength style events, all right? So for a female, that would be like 175 snatch, a 215 pound clean jerk. All right, so again, that would be kind of like the price of admission to the CrossFit Games, in the sense that if you don't have those numbers, you're probably not going to be able to go, right? If you have those numbers, actually now you're better off served redirecting some of that energy towards something else, right? Again, the person with like the 405 pound clean, after like fatigued kind of scenario, like that person probably isn't going to the games because, again, they're just spending all their time and energy into getting stronger, and they're not well-rounded, so they're not going to be able to actually express their capacity in other domains, right? So that's the goal, is to be able to do this in all kinds of workout scenarios, because you never really know what you're going to get, right? So again, once you actually have that price of admission in terms of strength, you're better off redirecting and spending more time on other areas, like I talked about before, again, towards like more sports-specific context. So a really good example of this, again, in CrossFit, in this kind of model, we're looking at battery being more important than a true 1 rep max. Battery in the sense of, like, how many times could you lift 90% of your max? How often can you do that? How often can you recover quick enough in that energy system where you can produce power again and hit a relatively heavy number, right? Again, so over here, we got athlete 1 and athlete 2. Athlete 1 is a typical example of like someone who's really strong, but they don't necessarily have good repeatable capacity, in the sense that, okay, they have a 315 pound clean jerk, where athlete number 2 only has 275. But if we do 25 or 20 cleans at 225, they are actually going slower to finish that Metcon than athlete number 2, right? They're doing about like 1 clean every 11 seconds, where the second athlete's doing one every a little over 8 seconds, right? So even though athlete number 2, if we're talking about a max, is technically weaker, really in like most sport-specific contexts, like most times you actually see strength tested in the sport of fitness, it's going to be more like that, 20 cleans for times kind of format. Like you either are breathing hard when you get there, you've done a workout, now it's after that, or you've had to lift multiple loads and they keep increasing, kind of like a ladder, right? Very rarely is it just like, okay, you're rested and a max, right? It's very rare. So that's why I'm saying battery is more important than your max. And kind of in that same vein, movement density is king. Like that's the most important thing. Is like, think about how many reps can I do in a certain amount of time, right? To think about like, okay, as soon as you have a certain movement, it becomes almost irrelevant that you have that. Now it becomes all about density, right? In the sense that like, okay, yes, you got your first muscle up. Congratulations. Now there's nowhere else to go. Like that's the highest skill in terms of gymnastics. It all becomes about, okay, how many muscle ups can you do in X amount of time, right? And you have to just slowly be able to increase that number. I can do 1 per minute. I can do 2 per minute. I can do 11 per minute, right? And I can do that for 5 minutes, right? Something like that. So again, that doesn't just apply to gymnastics. That could be your weightlifting numbers. Like again, like how many times can I come back and hit, in 3 minutes, hit 85% of my 1 rep max snatch, right? Or, how it's like, again, it's also like cyclical. So for example, like if I'm rowing and I can row at a 125 pace, or like a female, say I'm at a 132 pace, okay, that's great, I have that, but how long can I row at like a 142? Can I sustain that for a longer period of time, right? It becomes about sustainability. It becomes about, again, your repeatability. Again, this is all ways to say fitness, right? And how it's actually tested in the sport. So again, just another ways to kind of think about, again, strength is always context dependent. So if you can have a huge max, but you can't do it and you can't express it in the sport, it's irrelevant, right? And if we're looking to just continually improve our 1 rep max, that's not helpful either, unless we can actually transfer it to the sport in these scenarios, right? So again, it's never wrong to be strong. It's just wrong to continue to hammer something that's not helping you in your competitive atmosphere in the sport. Right? So there you go. And feel free to head over to ZOARfitness.com. I got all these episodes outlined there. And also feel free to email me at ben@zoarfitness.com with questions for more Aspen episodes.